All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Of course, over on Rumble, we've got a lot to unpack today. The Dalai Lama perving on a young boy, which is, well, he's a major religious leader with a lot of money, so I wish I could say that I was surprised at that. Also, Conan Gallaty. Now, we will be talking about the CEO of the Tampa Bay Times, and I will be asking you to spread this story around. Let's cause some trouble for a media mogul. I think that that's a good use of Clank resources. The Pentagon leaks and various other things that we have to talk about. We've got, of course, the UFC appearance of Trump, some derangement syndrome over that, among many other things. Mrs. Tag, I am your Huckleberry. Belle of the Bayou, good morning, Sticks and fellow clankers. Shilly Willy, if I had to clank too hard, I may accidentally poop. And Canwolf saying, 07. Interdasting. Over on Rumble, where we'll make sure that we're live. Then we'll get right into business. Yes, we are live on Rumble. Aaron with the first super chat of the day. Have you heard about North Korea not talking to South Korea whatsoever since Thursday? I am aware that there are problems between the two Koreas. Yeah, I didn't hear that specifically, but it doesn't surprise me in the least. They've got no reason to talk to them. There's no U.S. leadership currently to keep them to account. Automatic Selector, what do you think about RFK Jr. officially announcing his entry into the race for the presidency? I have talked about that. I think he's more economically sane than Marianne Williamson, and he's more coherent and cerebral than Joe Biden, certainly. So that's a plus. That being said, I'm still going to be voting for Trump. It doesn't matter if he's on the write-in ballot. I'll still be voting for him. When I look at what's been done by the uniparty system to Donald Trump, I say I can't sit there and believe that he's not actually what he portrays himself as being, an actual maverick. It's impossible. And I would say to other people that have a big problem with him, again, you don't get the entire corrupt system, the system that you know is corrupt. You can see it literally every day, even in legacy media reporting. You don't get that entire system jumping down your throat for no reason. Fair Frozen 55. Sticks, Dalai Lama apologizes for what? Okay, jail Tibet, bucko. We'll be talking about that. Don't worry. And just a sec. Let me make sure that all of the tags are working over here. The tabs, rather. San Francisco and Macron. And I talked about Macron this morning, but we'll be talking about it a little bit more. Biden enlists hundreds of social media influencers for upcoming re-election bid, according to a report. We'll be parsing that apart. I've got my doubts about the veracity of those statements. Now, the main news of the day. Dalai Lama apologizes to minor family over video showing him kissing boy. Yes, the Dalai Lama, he was at one of those, sort of the meet and greet thing that the Dalai Lama does. And there was a young boy there who asked for a hug. And that's innocuous. You want to hug the Dalai Lama. It's like, you want to hug the Pope. You want to hug, I don't know why you'd want to, but you want to hug Joe Biden. You want to hug Donald Trump. Maybe he gives you a free Big Mac as part of the deal. That's perfectly fine. Hugging a kid is no sin. And, little kids, they see the Dalai Lama. It's like, this is the authority figure. He's a comforting figure, etc. So you want to hug from him. But then the Dalai Lama kissed him. And, they're trying to ascribe this to being part of Tibetan culture. Okay, we'll give it a pass. Okay, you kiss people on the mouth. Okay, so do the multiple other cultures. It's fine. Then the Dalai Lama said something that is far beyond that, and he's apologized for it. Some people thought it was a deep fake video. It's not a deep fake video. The Dalai Lama would not apologize for this incident if it weren't real. He would come out and say, hey, online trolls decided to make a video of me kissing this kid and saying weird shit to him. He asked the kid if he wanted to suck on his tongue. That is not a hyperbolic exaggeration. That is literally what he said to this child. And the family is angry, as they should be. And other people are angry too. Now, as far as Tibetan culture, including tongue sucking or something like that, the only corroboration I'm seeing of that is from Chinese state media, and China fucking hates the Dalai Lama. We'll get into that in a moment. So I'm going to discount that for the moment. When you have an old man a religious leader, if you can call anyone in organized religion a leader, asking a little kid to suck on their tongue. He's come out and apologized and said, well, I'd like to tease people. It was just in jest. That is not a funny jest. And the Dalai Lama is a man of the world, so to speak. He's not some uncouth, random, rural Tibetan, or I think he dwells in Nepal now, who doesn't know the ways of the world at large. He represents a religious movement of hundreds of millions of people around the world. He understands, because he literally parties with people in corporations and governments in the West, he is well aware of the fact that sucking on the tongue of an old man and having like I guess an 8 or 9-year-old or something here doing that is, that's not a funny joke. It's not going to be received well. It's perceived as creepy. Now, the Dalai Lama, here's the context, has some good views sociopolitically. The idea that Europe should predominantly contain Europeans, that those cultures have a right to exist, that's fine. The idea that China is a threat to the world, that communism is a lie and a pile of shit, that's good too. The fact that he has some based, and the FBI considers that to be a Nazi term, I guess now, the idea that he has some based views exonerates him from the creepiness that we see here is completely wrong. This is why I don't follow leaders. Now, this is why I don't blindly follow anyone other than myself. When you peg yourself, when you hitch your cart to the wrong horse, you can be judged thereby as well. And the Dalai Lama can have good views in the socio-political sense while being a goddamn creepazoid. And anytime that you tell a little kid, even in jest, hey, suck my tongue, kid, that's creepy. Can you imagine what would happen if you or I did what the Dalai Lama did here? No, we'd be under investigation. There'd be people in body armor showing up at our door and knocking it down at 4 o'clock in the morning. Hey, what's on your hard drive? We've got to take a look. Hey, we got a complaint from the CPA. It's nuts. And he knows better, number one, unless he's getting demented. And his age, of course, that's a possibility. It's creepy. And it is creepy. And nobody should give him a pass because he's a religious leader and happens to have the right political views on a couple of issues. Nobody should be giving him a pass based on this. Again, I must opine, though, when you see people claiming, well, this is just a Tibetan sort of thing. They suck each other's tongues all the time or whatever. That appears to be Chinese state propaganda. I saw actually on Twitter a Chinese state media linked account making that claim. And the idea, I think, is to say, well, Tibet is so much better off under Chinese rule because, we no longer allow people to suck one another's tongues in a pedophilic manner. I think that that's bullshit. I don't think that that's part of the actual culture. Could be wrong, but I don't think that I'm wrong. King of Biltong. Good morning from Antons in Roanoke, Texas. Apologies, missed your Thursday live show. Got a little busy for Easter orders. Hashtag Clank Nation. Good segue into an announcement. I probably will not be live streaming tomorrow because it's my daughter's birthday. And so I'll be doing other things. I'm going to be cooking up a storm. We've got homemade, and I make a really good, by the way, meatloaf. Then there are deviled eggs, of course, because that's always a pleaser, and some green beans. I'm just going to throw them in so that it's not all a bunch of meat and protein. Green beans are good. You don't need to do much to them. Ramon C. GTC. Maybe the Lama learned from the Pope. Yeah, imagine that the Pope did something like this. He'd be flattened by a wave of people hating on him. Because it's the Dalai Lama, some people give him a pass. Well, I'm sorry, dude, but I'm not giving you a pass. Under no construct, ideologically, culturally, etc., religiously, would it be acceptable to have a little kid in your lap and they want a hug and then you ask them creepily to suck on your tongue? That's just weird, my dude. What are you, fucking 75, 80 years old or something right now? And this dude claims to be an oft reincarnated sort of ethereal entity. If that's true, then, it's okay to joke around with even kids or anyone else, but not in that context. No, you should not be telling a little boy that he should suck on your tongue. That's just fucking weird, dude. You're not getting a pass for this. Doesn't matter if you criticize China. There are plenty of critics of China, myself included, who never asked a little kid to suck on their tongue. The Agal Faces, fried corn and corn oil with cornbread and corn syrup. Yummy. Average American meal. Doubt Shadow, how to stop the Restrict Act. What actions to take? Call up or email, preferably, your congresspeople that represent you and demand that they stand by free speech. Some of them might be too fucking stupid to realize what's actually in the Restrict Act. It's just being billed as the Anti-TikTok Act. Well, TikTok is cringe, and so many of us, we don't have a problem with the idea that TikTok would go the way of the dinosaur, even though the act wouldn't accomplish that either. We do have a problem with the fact that the State Department and others would have limitless control over every bit of info that goes over the internet, whether or not it involves, by the way, even a U.S. firm. Mr. Good Dude, thoughts on Representative Chris Smith's recent CCP organ harvesting bill? I haven't heard of it. You can submit that to me in the Twitter DMs if you would like to. Doubt Shadow. Shout out to Phil Bowman, clanking his wang in South Buffalo. Wash your paws afore clasping that ass. Fubar 2020. Peter Zion says Trump can't win because independents won't vote for him. I've heard that before. Yeah, 2016 calls. It wants its memes back. And Joshua Thompson sending $2 without a comment, though. Get your money's worth, people. At least call me an asshole or something. Sigil Stone 17 on Rumble. Morning Sticks, D&D movie was all right. Glad they finally made one that isn't a complete piece of shit. Wouldn't know anything about it. And a follow-up, hashtag Free Tibet from China and those evil aristocrats masquerading as Holy Ben. Truly screwed up how the Lamas ruled Tibet. Yeah, fuck them and fuck the CCP as well. And have some extra for the birthday of Twigs Cursing Mallet 333. Thank you. Some grumpy goat. Sticks, I hope you're doing well. Currently, I'm training to be a better cook, and I took your last advice. I have an outside garden full of herbs for cooking. I must know, as a longtime fan, what is your favorite dish? Well, the favorite dish, I'm assuming you mean that I can cook. That's a hard one, actually. I make really good stuffed shells. It depends on what mood I'm in. Sometimes I want like Italian food, like I want the savory, I want the herby, I want the tomatoey. Sometimes I want like Asian food. I make a really good stir fry. And sometimes I just want something more down home. I can make a good stompat. It's on par with Liz's stompat, I'm proud to say, of course. Cottage pie. Cottage pie is great. Yeah, if you mean my favorite food of all time is actually still eel sushi. Smoked eel with soy sauce and preferably the hand-rolled kind. I mean, it's delicious. It's perfect. But I can't make that. I don't have any smoked eel that I can find for sale. It's a big problem. I need to go to Japan, I guess. So yeah, the Dalai Lama is a creepazoid. He's a creepy old man. He should meet with Biden. They have something in common. Maybe Biden would finally have a political friend if he met with the Dalai Lama. I mean, I know I don't mean to make light of something that is genuinely creepy and involves kids, but I mean, Christ almighty, come on. And you knew that you were being recorded. It's not like it was even a hidden thing. And we know it's not a deep fake because he came out and he apologized for it. So he admits the fact that it was creepy. Yeah, Russ Hanneman, lasagna, that would be close. I don't make as good a lasagna as stuffed shells. My stuffed shells are on point. I make a lot of soups. Tomato basil is one of my favorite. You can't go wrong with that. Potato leek. Also, gazpacho. Made that a couple times. That was pretty good. I like to cook. That's one of the skills that I've been working on. Like I already know how to grow things. Now I want to turn them into something that I can actually eat. Because I figure if you can have all garden fresh ingredients, at least for vegetarian recipes, hey, you can't go wrong with that. I'd like to have a sunflower field and make my own oil as well. Or some olives. I guess I'd have to move further south for that. Next news story. We've got a major scandal here. I am calling on all clankers to help me. If you are watching this broadcast on YouTube, as 1,200 of you are, on Rumble, as how many people are watching in Rumble? As almost 1,300 people are. So we've got a small army here, and we can make this work. The legacy media really fucked up on this one. And I'm one of the few people actually talking about it because a lot of people didn't get the memo, it seems. A few other people I think Viva Fry talked about it. I think did the quartering weigh in? I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, link in the description, and please do take this link. I did archive this. Although it was previously archived, I re-archived it as well. And so that's what you're seeing here. Conan Gallaty. You probably have no goddamn clue who that is. He happens to be the CEO of the Tampa Bay Times now. This is highly important, and also, phone is going off over there. Very, very interesting. We'll try to get past this. Conan Gallaty is the CEO of the Tampa Bay Times. You may know the Tampa Bay Times is the vaguely liberal-leaning newspaper, although I don't know if they even do newsprint now. They have a fairly decent digital footprint as well. And he's the CEO. He runs them. And we do know this is actually him, by the way, because he has an author's page that links to his Twitter account on the Tampa Bay Times itself. And the other day, he accidentally liked something that he probably shouldn't have liked, which was not pornography, but it was one of those pages on Twitter, you know, like basically it says, be honest, would you mind if I was your lunch today? And it's one of the big booby chicks on Twitter. It may or may not be a real person. It could be just a spam site. I'm not going to bother investigating that. I'm married with a kid, so I'm going to leave that to other people. You can go and fuck around with it if you want to. It's archived. Again, link in the description. He liked a post by this individual, Kayla, what is it? X-Kayla91, I suppose. And it's, you know, a flirtatious site. The problem is he's married with 2 kids. And I'm wondering if his wife knows about this. Probably not, considering the lack of people actually talking about it. So what I want you to do is go on Twitter or elsewhere and, you know, hashtag Conan Gallaty, maybe link the archived link in the description. Again, copy it out and paste it, and you can check it for yourself. He finally deleted the actual like that he had made. And I've got a theory about this. And this dude, the CEO of the Tampa Bay Times, so it's legacy media. It's not missing link media. They started long ago, the Tampa Bay Times, I think at the end of the 1800s. And I've been defamed by the legacy media. So yeah, damn right. I have a no hatchet buried with regards to you fuckers in the legacy media. If you defame other people, my fellow independent content creators, and sometimes myself, I'm going to breathe down your neck. You're a married man and you're liking stuff that links to what may be a porn page. Again, I'm not taking the link. I'm not telling you to do so. I have no clue. But you're liking big booby pinup chicks on Twitter. What I feel is that this is probably about like what happened with Ted Cruz years ago, where he blamed a staffer for it, by the way, at the time, and claimed that there was a like on his page or a retweet, I can't remember, and it was porn, actually. That was hardcore porn. And it was some chick, she comes home and she finds her husband banging some other chick, and then it's like reverse cuck porn because she was, you know, playing with herself actually at the time. And people thought this was hilarious. It got deleted. The Cruz campaign came out and blamed a staffer for it. I have a feeling it was Ted Cruz. I have a feeling that he has a burner account somewhere on Twitter and he didn't switch accounts. That is what I speculate is probably the problem here. He needs to be held to account. The legacy media is constantly talking about the need to hold people to account for their words and shit like that. Words are violence now. Everything is violence except for actual violence, which is okay. The Tampa Bay Times leans to the left, although to be clear and to be completely honest, they're not exactly the New York Times in scope or in leaning, and they're not CNN. And so, he probably, his wife should know about this potential scandal, because he can claim, and he hasn't so far because he's not being pressured to do so, that it was a staffer involved. It was an accident. You know, he was just going through his timeline and it randomly appeared and he happened to click like or something like that. He'll probably claim that too. I have a feeling if you dug into it, you'd find out that's not actually the case. His actual likes page, of course, has been purged of this. The archive doesn't lie, though, Conan. That's not how it works. We have you dead to rights on this particular one. So I'm calling on clankers to spread the story to the people that are watching now. take that up, take up the archive, make sure that Conan Gallaty is tagged and named specifically, increase the reach, and point out the hypocrisy of the legacy media with their moralism, etc., etc. We have the numbers. We have the numerics required to make sure that this actually becomes a story, at least of some kind. Hell, fact is that the missing link media would love to fucking crucify him, because then they can knock a competitor out of the way. I would point out in closing, this is very, very funny. Did you know that the Tampa Bay Times is actually the birthplace of PolitiFact? Yeah, they sold it, but they were the ones that invented PolitiFact. And now they've got this dude, the married dude with 2 kids, and he's perusing around Twitter. And he's not even looking at actual porn or something like that. He's looking at like the big booby chick who's making suggestive comments in the description of the tweets. Oh my God. So yes, it's time for war. Yes, the clankers must mobilize to make sure that the story is spread far and wide. Why not? Let's raise some hell. And it was on Easter too. It's like, it's Easter Sunday. You're pretending to be, the happily married man and stuff, and you're looking at that. So, Silky Johnson, Sticks, I learned that there are rules in the Egyptian Book of the Dead similar to the 10 Commandments. Did the Bible borrow them? I've read through parts of that. A lot of it is memorizing incantations. So I don't know that particular section off the top of my head. A lot of it has to do with going through the different stages of dying or being dead, rather. And if you know the right words, you sort of bypass it. It's sort of like a level cheat, like in like Super Nintendo games, you could put in the code with like 5 letters or something, and it would jump you to, a more advanced iteration of the level you were on or something. That's basically the sum and substance of it. The Patriot Shiro, White House News. Toddlers discover more of Biden's classified documents inside Easter eggs. Coated in chocolate, of course. K. Castles. No one's talking about proposed TikTok ban is because U.S. government can't lean on TikTok to censor themselves, a la Facebook, old Twitter, with the laptop or whatever. Well, TikTok is heavily censored. Chinese government makes sure of that. And they have the normal censorship too. I don't think that's the reason. Nobody's talking about it because they want the Restrict Act to pass so they can target other sites. Fallen Hero 4567 sent 3 upside down smile emojis. Jezebel B. The Iowa AG just got funding to treat rape victims. This is a bad look for the GOP. I'll have to look into that story because, of course, the headline that you saw may or may not be accurate. These days, you have to dig fucking deep in order to figure it out. Boycott Warhammer Plus. Hashtag Conan Gallaty. Hashtag lunchtime. Yeah, make some videos. Cross-platform. Make some tweets and shit like that. We'll have a good old time. We'll crucify a legacy media CEO who's probably worth millions of dollars. The sort of person who wants me and you to shut the fuck up. We'll soon have something to say about that, Conan. It'll be a fun time. I'm having a great time today. As you can tell, I'm fairly highly caffeinated. Devoured Eagle on Rumble. Hey Sticks, Tom from Switch to Linux made an interesting take on your Stalinized history vid. You should check it out, and I recommend everyone to sub there if you're ready to ditch Windows to take a look. And Sigilstone, we need social media literacy classes for everyone now. Lesson number 1, don't be horny on Maine. Yeah, I mean, you're married. You've got 2 kids. Your official account, I can't imagine. He's got less than 300 followers. Do we really think that a staffer is the one controlling the account? Maybe he's just got a loveless marriage and his wife is fully aware of this shit and is like, okay, just don't get caught and you can look at porn and stuff. It'd be sort of like Ted Cruz, ironically enough. Have you seen his wife and kids' interactions with him in public? They don't seem to be too happy now, do they? I have a feeling that something might be afoot there. Hey, Ted, okay, you can watch the reverse cuck porn that you're bizarrely into. Just don't do it on your main account. Get a burner. And then, of course, he got drunk, he got high or whatever, and he failed to switch the accounts and blamed and randomly sacked one of his employees. No, honey, that wasn't me. My employee just happens to be in the same weird shit that I'm into. B, do you know anything about Tartaria? I keep seeing the name pop up, but I can't tell if it's a distraction or a real topic of interest. I haven't heard of it, no. Mr. Kangaroo, China and the US have been attempting to provoke each other for the past few days. I left you 3 archived links regarding the whole thing. I'll take a look at them again. But yeah, there's a lot of provocation. I mean, why wouldn't the Chinese want to provocate the United States? The United States doesn't have a leader. Next news story. Oh, this is a big one. U.S. officials believe leaked U.S. classified documents about Ukraine war strength may be real. Now, there is a lot of lie by omission in that title. Firstly, with the Pentagon leaks that were actually leaked some time ago, more than a month, they made their way onto Discord in March. They made their way thence to 4chan, and then they spread around for several weeks before the Pentagon goddamn realized they existed or cared enough to bother looking into it, apparently. Yeah, Biden and his people's great efficiency, by the way. Now, we're going to assume that these links are real, or at least mostly real. They're saying, well, it might have been altered in some way by the people who posted. Okay, well, we'll accept that. I have my doubts. They're not huge doubts, but it would play into the hands of the West to spread disinformation. They've been doing it for years anyway. We're going to assume that the leaks are real. What this title and what most of the other legacy media titles about this story claim is that it has to do with Ukraine. So surveillance by satellite, actually, through advanced systems that aren't publicly known of the situation, troop totals, casualty totals, etc. Okay, that's all well and good. That's a big scandal in and of itself if that if that goes public, even though there is data sharing with other countries with regards to some of that material. Now, here's the problem. And here's what's not talked about, except in a lie by structure, maybe at the end of many of these articles. Those Pentagon leaks go far beyond anything with regards to Ukraine, satellite technology, troop totals, casualty totals. Like the tale is that the casualties for the Russians are lower than publicly acknowledged by the West. That's plausible, by the way, considering the situation on the battlefield. It's possible, but we don't know that. Now, again, we don't know that these are real. We're assuming that for the moment, for devil's advocate purposes. What's more concerning is that we have a structured campaign of surveillance by the U.S. government on many of its allies that is not being reported on. And this is why I'm skeptical that it's not real. This is why I think that these leaks probably are the legit real thing. If you were going to put out a bunch of leaks in order to discredit the Russians or whatever, mislead them in some way, or mislead the public for that matter, wouldn't you expect that the legacy media that's tied directly at the hip with the White House, the Biden White House, the stewardship, would put out all of the information? You wouldn't put out information that would anger your allies. It wouldn't make any sense to do that. You wouldn't want to muddy those waters. All you want to do is muddy the Russians' own intel and say, hey, we've penetrated at the deepest levels of Russian intel and the Russian military. And we know what's going on before it even happens. And we keep warning the Ukrainians of where strikes will occur and stuff. Ha ha, Vladimir, fuck yourself. That's what you would do. Unless you wanted to jettison the Ukrainians entirely, which honestly doesn't seem to actually be the goal here. My take is this. This is the most likely situation. The leaks are real, or at least largely. We don't know about the nitty-gritty of actual totals or individual components. The leaks are being suppressed, actually. They realize that they're real. They're very worried because some of this material is top secret and could only have come from someone fairly high up within the Pentagon, which is why for several days there they throttled internal communications to try to prevent any more leaks. The reasoning behind this, if it were fake, wouldn't actually make sense. I think that they're actually real. Under Joe Biden, we have seen one of the largest and most egregious leaks of Pentagon material in U.S. history. Well, why would they want to cover it up, especially going into election season? I can't fucking imagine why. Now, as far as the Ukraine connection, it doesn't really change things. I'm sure that the Russians are perfectly aware that U.S. espionage continues, just as theirs does towards us. And so that's like, it's par for the course. None of these things, by the way, are revelations. Oh, the U.S. has technology that it didn't disclose to the public? Well, that's a huge surprise. The U.S. government spies on allies. Look at Angela Merkel's own personal cell phone and how it was bugged, actually, by the NSA. This is par for the course. The problem is more diplomatic. You're not supposed to be caught doing these things. It's okay that you spy on your allies, that you look at your friends' homework. It's not okay to get caught out doing it. Sort of like a Dr. Strangelove scenario at the end of the day. That's the biggest problem with these leaks at this time. The other problem is that it looks like a cover-up when they're only reporting on certain aspects of those leaks and ignoring those that are far more damning. Again, the surveillance of our own allies, et cetera, is more important, at least internally, than stuff that has to do with Ukraine. A lot of people don't even support the war effort in Ukraine, the proxy war, effectively, that's going on there. And so it's less meaningful, really, than what's gone on with the spying. So you do have lies by omission and structure with regards to the Pentagon leaks. Quite a few of them, actually. In fact, it's basically the whole legacy media. Cindy Drellick, I finally caught you live again. Glad I tuned into this one. I don't see a cat, but I love a caffeinated stick. See, I'm riding high on that fucking caffeine. That's the real vitamin C. And later, of course, because my daughter has a birthday tomorrow, I'm going to be cooking up a storm. I got to hard-boil eggs tonight and make deviled eggs tomorrow in the morning. I'll chill them. I'm making meatloaf, which I make goddamn fucking well, by the way. I've got to say that my meatloaf is on point. You would enjoy it unless you're vegan or something. And I'm just going to cook off some green beans. That goes well with meatloaf, right? Yeah, and deviled eggs. You can't go wrong with that. That's what I'm talking about. I'm going to be eating a lot of those deviled eggs, too. You see, most people like paprika on them. I actually like them with dill more. But less people, when I put out a platter of the deviled eggs, half of them have paprika, half of them have dill. The paprika ones are gone in 10 seconds. There's always still a few dills left. I don't know. It benefits me because it's delicious. Let's see here. Sigil Stone again. All military leaks are false unless they come from the War Thunder forums. Yeah, it could be bullshit. We will put that out there right away. It could absolutely be bullshit. I'm just looking at the response to it. I'm thinking that it's not. I'm thinking that there actually has been a major top secret Pentagon leak from the Biden administration, which is why you're not seeing it trend as much. Joshua Thompson, hey Sticks, if I made a law reading channel, should I do it on Rumble? Yeah, you should definitely get on Rumble. Everyone should. Get on Rumble, get on BitChute, get on Odyssey. Spread out as far as you can because you never know when a site will be targeted under the Restrict Act tomorrow. Friendly Neighborhood Sawyer, no idea, but speak to Andreas Zertis about Tartaria. Scabrous Wretch. Hey, Sticks, I have suffered mild insomnia for several years. I do sleep, but it takes ages to actually fall asleep. Any remedies you can recommend? When you're in bed at night, do meditation. And not like the, listen to your breathing meditation. Do physical meditation. Put your awareness in, especially it works best if you put your awareness in your forehead. Just feel the forehead. Feel the sensation. Like imagine a tingling there. And then try to move it down the body. You'll probably find it's easier to move it down than back up from your feet. If you do that for a little period of time, you're laying on your back with your arms at your side. Sometimes you can have lucid dreams and even, to use the term, astrally project using this method. You will tend to get tired and more relaxed. Then just roll over and have a good night's sleep. Chamomile will work. You should macro dose it. Just put like 4 tea bags in the fucking cup and slug that shit down right before bed. Make sure you go pee-pee first. Otherwise, you'll get up at 4 a.m. You jumped. Eric Hecker, getting my money's worth. Thank you. So am I. Timothy Finch, Marquis de Sade, free speech hero or standard perv? I don't know that he physically participated in the things that he depicted, in which case he would be a free speech hero. If he did engage in such behaviors, technically as far as the literature, he's a free speech hero, but he would be a perv too. Be worse than the Dalai Lama. That's going some at this point. He did a lot more, according to those particular scripts, than sucking on a little kid's tongue. Next news story, again, link in the description. Big 45, Donald Trump. This is a Soviet post. He arrived with Mike Tyson and Kid Rock, actually, at a UFC match. And they got a considerable standing ovation. And I just wanted to point this out because a lot of people are saying, well, Trump is low energy. He doesn't have it anymore. That's funny because every time impromptu he shows up for some sort of public spectacle, he seems to get massive amounts of cheering. That's number one. Number two, he's up about 6 points in the polling aggregate, and his only viable opponent, who hasn't announced yet, is down by about the same amount. And he still pulls in thousands or possibly tens of thousands of people at his rallies. I found it funny. Ed Krasenstein responded to this and was being dismissive and was like, oh, well, look, he's partying with a bunch of has-beens that are just as irrelevant as he is, or something to that matter. And I was thinking to myself, if you think that goddamn Mike Tyson is irrelevant, then you know less about sports than me somehow. I don't pay attention to boxing. I don't pay attention to any sport. I don't give a shit. The only thing from sports that I care about is when someone gets fucking mutilated, like Dale Earnhardt Jr. or something like that. That was funny to me. That's perfectly fine. I can't tell you who the top tennis player is. I can't tell you who the best cyclist is. Used to be Armstrong, but then they decided to railroad him. I don't have any clue about baseball. The only thing that I want, if I'm watching a baseball game, is for someone to be like totally roid raged at the time and to go on a spree hitting the other players in the head with the baseball bat so hard that their brain leaks out of their nose. That's the only reason to watch sports, is for the injuries. It's for the massacres or the rioting of the crowds and things like that. As far as Tyson goes, the fact that he was once broke means absolutely nothing. He's got a cannabis edibles line right now that probably pulls him in millions of dollars a year, and he even made a video with Evander Holyfield over this. To think that Mike Tyson, one of the most decorated athletes of all fucking time in U.S. history, is irrelevant. What are the Krasensteins known for? They're known for Twitter shitposting. They're reply guys. Originally, they made it big by replying to Trump till they got banned for botting. And now they have to make do with replying to other people talking about Trump. It's like a step back in their careers. Your career's already peaked like half a decade ago, dudes. Irrelevant, my ass. Kid Rock has enough money to buy and sell your goddamn McMansion anyway, where you dubiously, I think, live together or whatever. And yeah, Mike Tyson may have some fucking problems. But Jesus fucking Christ, calling him irrelevant and calling Trump irrelevant for that matter. Former president, current front runner for the nomination, multi-billionaire. Yeah, he's totally irrelevant. He's totally down for the count. Just like Mike Tyson if he gets tapped on the nose. Yeah. I think he appeared with Iron Mike for a reason. Yeah. Comeback Kid mode or something like that. Not a big fan of Kid Rock as far as the music goes. And then, of course, the hyperbolic takes exactly on politics. I don't agree with either. He seems to have God Emperor mode. But I don't have a problem with him. It's like sort of like when Ted Nugent shows up to do the national anthem. Yeah, you're not Jimi Hendrix, but you did a competent job. Good one, man. Corey Otote, please share your meatloaf recipe. I don't really do recipes, except for the first time that I cook something, and then I tinker with it a little bit every single time from there on, just a little bit, to see if I can get it just perfect. I can go from good to perfect. That's the secret of good cooking. I don't use recipes except the first time that I cook something, and then I tend to modify the recipes. Like I made a white pasta the other day. It's spaghetti, well, linguine in my case. Linguine with a white sauce and asparagus in it. And I took a recipe that I just randomly found online that sounded fairly simplistic, and I modified it. I modified the herbs that you add, the level of salt, the amount of cheese, how you add it. You can sprinkle it on top or put it in the sauce itself, how long you cook it, how much you thicken it, the kind of pasta you use. I cook by ear, the same way that people that like instruments, they can play by ear, like they can't read musical notes, so they play. And that's the way I cook. Khalid Cooper, clank, spoon, spoon. By the way, my daughter finds clanking hilarious. She is definitely my absolute offspring. When I clank my spoon in my cup to mix up the creamer and the sugar into it, she always smiles and giggles at that. So I'm in good company. Next news story. San Francisco could be on the verge of collapse. What should California do about it? It's from the Chronicle's editorial board. I will point this out. San Francisco is a shithole. It's full of public defecation, basically resembles something in rural India on that point. It's full of crime, although it's not one of the top 10 most deadly cities, and people from San Francisco and far leftists will be glad to notify you of that fact. Yeah, it's only like number 17 or something like that as far as large cities go. That's great. Yeah, it's only reasonably dangerous. It's not Chicago. It's not any of the other leftoid cities that we administer, like Portland, Chicago, Detroit, a few others. New York City, I guess, would be probably in the top 50 at least, and worsening over time. Here's my thoughts, though, and there's some nuance here. San Francisco has begun to resemble Detroit or Chicago in the sense of being decrepit, overpriced, miserable, riddled with crime, etc. The reason why I don't think San Francisco will end up like Detroit is simple geography. That and tech, of course, although the bottom could come out from under that at any given time. They've already lost a significant value in stocks over the last couple of years, so we'll see what happens. San Francisco has the advantage of being a major port on the Pacific coast, therefore trade with China and other Asian countries. This is something that actually fucked Detroit in the ass. It wasn't just the race riots. It wasn't just the white flight, people with the means to do so left because people were gunning each other down in the streets. And so they were racist for leaving. That's the other problem is Great Lakes trade. Detroit was a big Great Lakes trading area. And then the Rust Belt formed. Rust Belt because the industry began to dry up. Detroit, sapped of that lifeline and of the automotive industry, as certain manufacturers said it's too dangerous here, we're moving elsewhere. They suffered as a result, lost hundreds of thousands of people off their population, and now large stretches of the city are completely empty. They should just let them go completely fallow. You could have a forest city, sort of like a Houston arrangement if you wanted to in Detroit. Actually, it would look kind of nice. I mean, yeah, people would murder each other out in the woods or prostitute themselves, but at least there are trees there. Maybe you can have a little urban farming project going on. Oh, wait, people would just steal the animals. That's what happened to Detroit. San Francisco doesn't have that problem. It's on the coast. The fact is that in the internal era of trade, so in Detroit's heyday, internal consumption, and then some export and import, Detroit was in a perfect location. It's right on the Great Lakes, so you can trade through Canada. You can send it up the Hudson. You're centrally located within the U.S. You can send it throughout the U.S. St. Louis has the same problem, by the way. Now it makes more sense to have the industry on the coasts because of the nature of global trade, especially importation on both coasts. So San Francisco, while it will, I think, lag off and end up with problems, I don't actually see it going Detroit mode, not unless something disastrous happens. Let's say a couple of the other big Silicon Valley firms leave. That could leave them high and dry. There's another San Francisco earthquake and half the city is wrecked. Yeah, they probably won't rebuild everything at that point. Other than that, no, I don't think they'll end up like Detroit. I think that they'll end up more like any other coastal city that's blighted by crime. It'll be a miserable place to live where people have to pack themselves in if they're middle class, 4 to a goddamn single pod. But it'll stagger on for the indefinite future. The Patriot Chiro. What the hell did Anheuser-Busch think they were doing? Do they even know their audience? Who greenlighted this? Who were they groveling to? In the end, they won't lose any business. In the end, because all the beer companies, the piss beer companies, are gone woke anyway, they won't lose business. They realize that 90% of those rednecks that they cater to will still drink their product because they happen to like it for reasonable purposes. They like piss beer. They basically want purified water that alcohol briefly waded through. And they realize that they can then cater to the Pabst Blue Ribbon drinking crowd and try to steal the thunder from other companies. And they can get more investment too because they fulfilled one of the goals of ESG. They're not going to lose anything. That's why they did it. Make punk rock great again. Music. Hey, Sticks, happy birthday to your little bundle of sticks. I play music by ear. By the way, just reloaded my Let's Go Brandon song. Makes a great birthday theme. Ha ha ha. Rock on. Yeah. I don't drink beer at all. Here in this part of the country, Grolsch is the big one. On the other side of the country, it's mainly Heineken. And but I don't drink beer. I haven't had I can't remember the last time I had a beer, actually. Not a big fan of it. If you want to get hammered, there are things that are more powerful than beer. I'd say get Jack Daniels, but I think that they're woke too. I don't know, get some gin or something like that. And no, to God, Grolsch is not better. It's shitty, actually. I hate to say it. Heineken is the best beer in the Netherlands. Next news story. Macron says Europe must not be a follower of the US or China on Taiwan. Now, this is dovetailed also in warnings that the French, or the Europeans in general, should also, maybe step back from reliance on the US dollar. I would talk about the fact that you don't use the US dollar and actually you have the euro, but apparently this has escaped mention. I would like to point out how Macron is fundamentally correct and fundamentally wrong at the same time. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt and go with the correct side first. Emmanuel Macron is fundamentally correct, whatever you think about him, for his view on Taiwan. NATO is not involved in that particular sphere. The United States and its East Asian allies are the ones that are involved with Taiwan. It is not necessary for any European country to partake in sanctioning China, bullying China, rebuffing China, arming the Taiwanese, etc., etc. They don't have a Pacific coast. They have an Atlantic coast. There's no reason for them to get involved. Pragmatically speaking, and in the sense of not wanting a world war or something, technically he's correct. I don't like Macron. I think he should be out on his ass for defying the will of the people multiple times, crippling part of the country's economy and being a goddamn egotistical authoritarian pervert. That being said, he's not wrong on that particular issue. As far as the US dollar, we have heard now for decades from people that are Europhiles that needs to happen. They want to strengthen the euro, draw together more into a federated system, getting rid of the old, hey, we're a bunch of nations under the EU banner, now we're just going to be Europe, a thing. We've heard it from them, from the globaloids of Europe for decades to come. So in that sense, what Macron is saying, while it's more on the nose, while it's more out in the open, oddly enough, more honest in that respect, it's not really that different from what we've heard anyway. People are treating it like major news. He's not saying anything that European leaders haven't said for a while. You'll remember with the war in Iraq, the United States went in there. The coalition of the willing was fairly scant, and France was on the forefront of saying, we oppose this. Well, then you got freedom fries for a while. Seward's, by the way, had freedom fries up until the end. Unfortunately, they have gone out of business, which is sad. I will never taste their beer-battered fries or their very good veggie burgers and super dogs ever again. It was sad because it was like one of those old 50s style diners where you could imagine greasers walking through the door, and all the old people went there, after they got their pension money. And it's kind of sad to see them go. And Rutland is now dying off, I think. It's going to become a ghost town at some point. Anyway, back to Europe. I don't disagree with Macron with regards to France or Europe's role in Taiwan. The United States does not need the help. The Taiwanese aren't asking for it. And other Asian powers like Japan and South Korea, and to an extent the Philippines, are involved already. You don't have Pacific frontage. It's not your battle. Good on you. That being said, there's some naivete here. Trying to appease China won't work. The idea of a resurgent French empire under Macron's rule of all things is not going to goddamn happen. The idea of the solidification of the EU is not going to happen. I would pose this challenge. The United States, which is what the EU is modeled after in the most explicit sense, has one language. I mean, technically now Spanish is interchangeable in some parts of the United States and occasionally French in parts of northern New England. For all intents and purposes, everyone speaks one language. It's not just a currency union. They were conjoined from the start for, in some cases, depending on the state, several centuries. It's one system, which should be devolved further, actually, if anything. It's become too federalized, which is what people like Macron want for Europe, which I think would be a terrible idea. It was already there. When the United States was first founded, most of the land in the North American continent was completely empty. Thus, you had the Homestead Act, et cetera, et cetera. What does Europe have? You have like 50 fucking goddamn different languages. You have 50 fucking goddamn different cultures. They're not all part of the same primordial stock. These countries have bitterly fought each other for thousands of years in some cases, and it's entirely malleable borders, which they still squabble over, at least inadvertently today. You have a huge difference between the countries that were behind versus not behind the Iron Curtain. While you have one currency, there is reluctance in some cases even to continue with that, especially in Southern Europe and in parts of the more wealthy countries, it's a problem as well. So the euro is embattled. The eurozone is embattled by some of those countries, especially the post-Iron Curtain countries, because you're letting in people that don't have anything to do with Europe in the first place. You have none of the advantage, and you have an aging, senescent population and high density in most of Europe. You have none of the advantages that the United States had during the first 200 years of its existence to establish itself. So your reliance upon the concept of a rising European superpower that somehow the French are going to goddamn lead, I think is a far cry from goddamn reality. If anything, the Germans will subjugate you, and you'll be right where you were in the 1940s without a shot fired. Wouldn't that be funny? A bunch of French people wake up and find that the new chancellor only speaks German and has a proclivity towards, hooked crosses on clothing apparel. Oh, but it's legal this time, they would say. Oh, we're not talking about depopulating people, and unless you talk about wanting to depopulate the native population of all countries to make more room for eco-growth or something like that. Yeah, the French are really going to lead. You're the new empire, buddy. And where does that leave, by the way, the British? They'll swing over towards the United States, probably taking the Scandinavian countries out of the EU and joining them to some Western empire or something. You won't end up with a three-point world. You'll end up with Europe playing monkey in the middle. All the rest of the world has been fundamentally carved up between the East and Western blocks. You either play that basic game or you become the third wheel, and you're not the one that's going to get the oil. You're not the one that's squeaky. I think that's both the East and West block wheels at this point. Your own people will revolt against you. So Macron is right about Taiwan. He's wrong about semiconductors, I would point out. And he's wrong about geostrategy in general. But he's gotten a lot wrong in his time as the Presidente of France. Supposedly a free country. When I was a kid, and when most of you were kids, France was like an idyllic place. The Champs-Élysées and all of the art and wine and American cigarette and 5-hour working days and shit like that. Women with armpit hair and shit. It's not that way anymore, which is sad. By the way, tonic water, it's not alcoholic. Tonic water with elderflower essences mixed with the juice of half a lime is one of the best drinks ever. Much more refreshing than any piss beer. Fuck the Bud Light. Just get tonic water. Testing 2741. Black pill is truth. Swing and Rust Belt states are unwinnable. I disagree with you. Cunning tube. Esoteric question. Would you be willing to debate one of the teachers, my teachers, on the models of magic? # Clank. Maybe, but right now I don't have time to debate or even make appearances. So in the future, I hope to. Aaron Bennett, with multiple nations, including our allies, moving away from the U.S. influence, including our currency, it seems American hegemony is in decline. What makes you optimistic about the future of the U.S.? Well, number one, energy. Number two, the stupidity of people like Macron and the pragmatism on the ground with regards to their actual capabilities of leadership. Number three, the tendency of certain East Bloc states to vastly overstretch and take whatever political capital that they gain and burn it away in order to gain a few acres of land. This has been a repeat thing both by the Chinese and by the former Soviet Union. I can't imagine that they're going to deviate from that now. Inquisitor Jack, Euro population is getting replaced because of their own policies and behaviors. World's smallest violin plays. See, I don't want any culture in the entire world displaced. I don't even want the fucking commies displaced. Let them have their containment unit and live their commie lives if they like them so much. Osborne Cox, what advice would you give someone who's trapped in a job they hate? I make great money as a banker, but I feel black-pilled and unfulfilled. Live a very, very sparse lifestyle and squirrel as much money away as you can. And then some years down the line, when you can no longer bear it, attempt to invest in a better lifestyle. If you're making great money as a banker, you can live well below your means and still live better than the average person. And then you can take that extra money and you can make that money work, so to speak. I'm not giving you investment advice on how to do that. You're a banker. You probably know better than me. And then you quit the game at some point in the future. And you've probably got other talents. Hone one of them in the meantime while you get the chance. Doc Holliday, white guilt syndrome is a severely debilitating mental illness. Absolutely. Sigil Stone 17 on Rumble. Pittsburgh took a good look at San Francisco and Detroit and slammed full reverse on their leftism, trying to steer away from the iceberg, reopening youth detention centers for the little bastards problem. Yeah, many such cases. And then the final news story. This is a funny, I just threw this in for humor. It's not even really newsworthy. Biden enlists hundreds of social media influencers for upcoming re-election bid, according to a report. Now, we have problem number one. We don't know that Joe Biden is actually running for re-election. This is entirely speculative. Trying to draft influencers, the phone is going off again over there for some fucking reason. Trying to draft a bunch of TikTokers and Instagrammers, the tween audience getters, aboard could also indicate that he simply wants to push some policy or policies, or just defend himself because his approval is not doing so well. It could be entirely possible if that's the case. This does not necessitate that he's running for re-election. He could also be getting these people together because he intends to pass the buck to Kamala Harris or somebody else, booty judge, whatever. He stands down, but he's created an army of influencers that can work with whoever else comes next. Now, problem number two, of course. Who do these people influence? If you are on TikTok, what is your average audience age? What, 12? Something like that. Not all these people are U.S. citizens, number one. TikTok being used in other parts of the world, Instagram too. It skews heavily towards the youngest demographic, the 13 to 17-ers. Can they vote? No, they can't vote. They're not old enough to vote. And by the way, turnout among the youth is the lowest of any demographic anyway. You'd be better off attempting to target millennials or even Gen X than targeting the youngest element of voters. I hear over and over, it's like when David Hogg talks about Gen Z is going to win this business and shit like that. No, you're not. When you talk about so-called reform with regards to guns and stuff, that's being pioneered by people that are twice your age or more. You're just the puppets. You're the ones that are willing to knock on doors, but you're not willing to press the lever on the ballot box. The idea that he's going to get a bunch of influencers aboard. Okay, who are the influencers? A bunch of people that I've never heard of for the most part. I like to think I'm a little bit with it when it comes to digital news, mainly because I have to. You're talking about a bunch of cringe talkers that have an echo chamber audience that already supports, at the very least, liberal policies, and in some cases doesn't like Biden because he's not far left enough. Yeah, that's really going to do wonderful things. That's going to, it's really going to win you a re-election bid. For an 80-year-old man, that's the other part. Joe Biden is literally elderly. If you think that you can rely upon teenagers to get mobilized and really, really excited about your policies, hey, you're going to have to throw them a little bit more meat on the bones. Right now, you're still completely stalled out on most student loans and everything else that you've wanted to do that wasn't completely injuncted from the get-go. You're not doing jack shit. I hate to tell Biden this, but your plan will fail. And also, the left literally can't meme. I have found few examples of leftoid memes that actually made sense and were digestible. Anyway, I think that I'm going to go offline now. I've got eggs to boil. I've got another. Please don't send any more super chats, though. John Andrew, saw a YouTube clip where this guy drives through the Harry, Indiana. I see now where Mayor Pete gets his lack of work ethic. The place was a disaster. Yeah, many such cases in the Rust Belt. But yeah, I've got to hard-boil eggs. What else do I have to do? I can't remember. Oh, yeah, I've got to prep the meatloaf for tomorrow. You need to pan it up the day beforehand and just refrigerate it and then pop it in the oven. It'll save me, half an hour's time, basically. Be a fun day. Lots and lots of shit going on. Chris Williams, China makes genetic super babies. Will we follow? They don't make super babies. They are investigating gene editing at this time to attempt to increase IQ, etc. I have a feeling that some of those experiments go wrong. Hunter Wadley, Sticks, mom fills out the ballots and the adult children sign them. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be the average TikToker. I mean, if you can't mail a letter, how do you fucking figure out how to fill out your ballot on election day? Yeah, you can't even write in cursive. Pretty soon, us old fogies will be able to write to each other in cursive in the gulag that's coming from the leftoids, and they won't know what the fuck we're writing. None of them will be able to decipher it. They'll have to hire cryptographers to understand what we're saying to each other in our dismal cells. with our soyant as the only thing that we're allowed to eat. That's about all.